3 ages when women feel the strongest need for a man. The hardest truth, finally explained. There are 3 very specific ages in a woman's life when her desire for a relationship becomes much stronger, not by accident, not just emotionally, but psychologically and biologically. And if you are a man who never understands these phases, you will continue misunderstanding women for the rest of your life. Most men assume women want love and relationships the same way throughout their whole lives. Wrong. Studies show something completely different. Developmental psychologists from the University of Chicago who studied female relationship motivation across different age groups discovered something most people never speak about honestly. A woman's desire for connection does not move in a straight line. It rises strongly during 3 clear and predictable stages, and what she wants during each of those stages is completely different from the others. What the researchers discovered surprised almost everybody involved. The first stage happens between ages 18 and 22. This is the exploration period. Her brain is still developing, especially the prefrontal cortex, the area connected to long-term thinking and decision-making. She mostly lives in the moment. She wants emotion, adventure, attraction, excitement, freedom. She is not deeply focused on where life will be 5 years later. She is focused on what makes her feel alive right now. During this phase, she usually is not searching for a permanent life partner. She is gathering experiences, emotions, memories, lessons. The kind of man she feels attracted to often reflects exactly that. Someone exciting, someone unpredictable, someone who creates intensity in the present moment. But this is where things become even more interesting. The second stage appears between ages 25 and 30. Suddenly, everything begins to change. Her environment starts shifting around her. Friends begin getting married. Some are building families, others are settling into long-term relationships. At the same time, the biological clock, which neuroscientists say is not imaginary but connected to real hormonal changes, slowly creates a quiet sense of pressure in the background. Researchers at Columbia University studying female pair bonding notice that women during this phase do not only look for attraction anymore. Without fully realizing it, they begin evaluating men for long-term value, emotional consistency, maturity, reliability, character, future direction. The same woman who was chasing excitement at 21 may now be paying attention to completely different traits at 28. She begins asking different questions internally. Can this man stay calm during difficult moments? Can he build something real? Can he be trusted over time? Can he create peace instead of confusion? If you have ever felt a woman suddenly change her expectations, her standards, or even her energy toward relationships, this is often the reason. Most men think the woman became complicated overnight. In reality, her priorities simply changed with the stage of life she entered. Then comes the third stage, between ages 38 and 45. This is the stage most people misunderstand the most. By now, she has experienced life deeply. She has built things. She has likely experienced heartbreak, disappointment, success, growth, and emotional lessons that changed her permanently. And now she reaches a point many women describe as one of the clearest emotional periods of their entire lives. At this stage, she usually stops caring about being impressed and starts caring about feeling emotionally safe. Not financially safe, emotionally safe. She wants honesty, stability, presence, calmness. A man who is genuine instead of performative. A man who feels emotionally grounded instead of constantly trying to prove himself. Psychologists sometimes call this the authenticity shift. This is the stage where surface-level attraction loses much of its power and emotional depth becomes far more important than appearance, status, or temporary excitement. She no longer wants endless emotional games. She no longer finds chaos attractive. She values peace more than intensity. She values truth more than performance. She values consistency more than charm. And here is the warning many men desperately need to hear. If you meet a woman during any of these stages, and you do not understand what she emotionally needs during that period of life, you will take her behavior personally. You will think she is impossible to understand. You will think she is sending mixed signals. You will think she suddenly changed for no reason. But most of the time, she is simply responding to the internal timeline of her own development, a timeline most men were never taught to notice. The harsh reality is this: a woman who genuinely needed you deeply during one stage of her life may honestly outgrow that need later, not because you were worthless, not because the connection was fake, but because her emotional window changed, her priorities changed, her internal world changed. And many men spend years feeling confused because they never understood this simple truth. Timing shapes attraction more than most people realize. A woman at 21 and the same woman at 41 can look at the exact same man and search for completely different things. The men who suffer the least confusion are usually the men who understand these shifts early. They stop chasing temporary validation and start building connections based on emotional alignment, maturity, and shared direction instead of only chemistry and timing. The real question was never simply, what does she want? The deeper question was always, where is she emotionally in her life story right now? Because once you understand that, many things that once felt confusing suddenly become very clear. And when a man finally learns to recognize these patterns, he stops reacting emotionally to every change in female behavior. He begins seeing the deeper structure underneath it. He stops taking everything as rejection and starts understanding timing, emotional evolution, and psychological phases. Most people never learn this. That is why they repeat the same painful relationship patterns again and again without understanding why. But the moment you begin recognizing these windows, you start seeing relationships differently. You stop asking why she changed and start asking what changed inside her world. That single shift in understanding can completely transform the way you see attraction, love, commitment, and emotional connection forever. And once you start seeing relationships through this lens, you begin noticing something even deeper that most people miss completely. It is not only that women change across these stages. Men change too, but men are rarely taught to recognize their own timing, so they assume everything is random or personal. In reality, both sides are moving through emotional phases, but only one side is usually observing the pattern. When a man meets a woman in the first stage, ages 18 to 22, he often misunderstands intensity as depth. He thinks strong attraction means strong compatibility, but in many cases, it is simply emotional curiosity. It is experience-seeking energy, not long-term evaluation. This is why many early relationships feel powerful at the start, but unstable over time. It was never built on the same foundation from both sides. One person was exploring life, the other was already attaching meaning. Then, in the second stage, ages 25 to 30, the misunderstanding shifts in a different way. This is where many men feel like a woman suddenly changed. One day she seems relaxed, playful, open. The next, She becomes more serious, more selective, more aware of outcomes. But what is actually happening is not confusion. It is refinement. She is no longer responding only to emotion. She is responding to direction. She is not just asking, "Do I enjoy this person?" She is asking, "Where is this going?" And many men fail here because they continue operating with the mindset of the first stage. They try to maintain excitement when she is now looking for stability. They try to win attention when she is now looking for consistency. So the connection starts to feel mismatched, even if attraction is still present. Then comes something even more subtle. In the third stage, ages 38 to 45, men often assume women are settling, but that word is misunderstood. It is not settling in the sense of lowering standards. It is settling in the sense of finally dropping illusions. At this stage, many women are no longer impressed by appearance alone, status alone, or promises alone. They have already seen how quickly those things can disappear. So what becomes attractive is something much simpler, but much rarer. Reliability without performance, presence without pressure, emotional steadiness without unpredictability. And this is where many men get confused again, because what worked before no longer works here. They try to impress instead of connect. They try to chase instead of understand. They try to create excitement when what is actually needed is calm consistency. But there is a deeper layer underneath all of this that ties the entire pattern together. Across all three stages, what changes is not just desire. It is perception of safety. In the first stage, safety is not a priority. Experience is. In the second stage, safety becomes partially important, mixed with ambition, timing, and life direction. In the third stage, safety becomes the foundation of everything else. This is why the same behavior can be attractive at one stage and unattractive at another. Not because the person became different, but because the internal definition of safety evolved. And when you understand this, you stop personalizing things that were never personal in the first place. You stop assuming rejection is emotional when it is often structural. You stop assuming inconsistency is manipulation when it is often timing mismatch. And you stop assuming connection failure always means someone did something wrong. Sometimes it simply means two people met in a window where their internal worlds were not aligned. This is also why some connections feel effortless while others feel like constant tension. Effortless connection usually happens when both people are in compatible stages of emotional development, even if they are different ages. Tension happens when two people are in different internal priorities, even if attraction is strong. And this is the part most people never learn. Attraction gets you into a connection, but timing and emotional alignment decide whether it lasts. When men start understanding this, they stop chasing the wrong outcomes. They stop forcing depth where only curiosity exists. They stop trying to build permanence where only exploration is happening. Instead, they start observing. They start listening. They start recognizing where someone actually is, not where they hope them to be. Because once you can see the stage, you stop fighting the behavior. And when you stop fighting the behavior, you finally start understanding the person behind it. And when you understand this deeply, your whole way of looking at relationships starts to change. You stop reacting to every shift in behavior like it is something personal. You stop assuming that every change in tone, interest, or attention means you did something wrong. Instead, You start noticing patterns earlier, before they turn into emotional confusion. You realize that most misunderstandings in relationships do not come from lack of love, but from different emotional timing and different internal stages. And when you see that clearly, you stop overthinking every situation and start observing it more calmly. You begin to understand that effort alone cannot fix a mismatch in emotional direction or life stage, no matter how strong the feelings are. Because if someone is in a phase of exploration, they will not respond to seriousness in the same way as someone who is looking for stability. If someone is in a phase of evaluation, they will not connect deeply with pure excitement without direction. And if someone has already reached a phase of emotional grounding, they will no longer value unpredictability the way they once did. People are not just reacting to your actions, they are reacting through their current stage of emotional development. And once you understand this, you stop taking everything as a reflection of your worth. You stop asking why you were not enough, and start asking whether the timing and emotional alignment were even compatible in the first place. And this is where real clarity begins, because you stop chasing validation and start understanding behavior. You stop forcing connections to fit one idea of love, and instead you start seeing that people move through different emotional states over time. Not in a perfect pattern, not in a fixed rule, but in general shifts that shape how they connect, choose, and stay. When you can see that, relationships become less confusing. Not because everything becomes easy, but because everything becomes understandable. And when something is understandable, it stops controlling your emotions the same way. You start responding instead of reacting, observing instead of assuming, and building awareness instead of confusion.